Okay, welcome to DAO Spring Week 3. We have Andrej, who's co-founder of DeepWorks Studio, who designed Ether staking UI for the Ethereum Foundation, among many other big projects for big crypto orgs. Master Hyperspring facilitator and an organizational designer. Let's make sure that you can unmute. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to the quick exercise. I don't know what time it is. I know it's a little bit difficult because I'm in a different time zone, but I really appreciate you showing up. Today will be just a really quick exercise that I put together under the topic of laser focus and die, which Pete came up with, and I think it's quite fun because there's a lot of challenge in getting focused individually or especially as a collective. So what we'll go through is kind of a design thinking exercise specifically applied. Well, we've been using something like this for the last 7 years in order to internally and create and run a business that has the same principles as a DAO. So it's like actually all kind of individual people who just basically do what they want. And yet we get to focus on doing very high quality products in this space, or designing high quality products in the space. And also focus around internal kind of work and coordination in order to build an organization as it is right now. So it started as a design studio, and by now we're actually building technical infrastructure that supports these kinds of pro-social environments that are very high focused. So I'm kind of excited to share this with you. I'm streaming from Starlink, so if video freezes, I apologize. Generally, and thanks for the comments. Keep them coming. I'll respond to them in a second. If video freezes, I think it doesn't matter too much. I will share with you in a second a Miro board where we'll work together. We'll guide you through some exercises. I will not stream any copyrighted songs now. I'll just use the app called Endel. And I use that generally for a lot of sessions when we are on a call and we need to work together. And this will be one of the things that might be a bit unusual, because what we'll do today is kind of a replacement for a lot of meetings that you might be familiar with in terms of being kind of dragging too long or being not necessarily productive. So my goal is always to get people together in the same room and work together on cool stuff and just actually feel like they're having fun and progressing, and feel included regardless of their position. Okay, great, Nick. I'm glad it works. Yeah, I don't actually know which songs were copyrighted, which songs would not be copyrighted. I was thinking about playlist with the Gorillas, but if you don't like the music I'm playing, just play Gorillas for yourself. I'll mention when we'll have some music breaks. So let me share my screen real quick, and actually I'll share with you my the board. I use Miro a lot for all kinds of things. You're probably familiar with it already. So this exercise is going to be split up in two phases. One of them, the first one, is actually going to be very very simple. We'll just agree and align on individual and collective problems that you can see, and I'll just show you how to really quickly get a team on the same page with what problems you're facing, what you can see needs work, and then how to prioritize. It's very simple. We'll just write stuff on Post-its and then do some voting on it, and these will also give me a little bit of an insight in your personal struggles and your personal challenges that you can see. So I can kind of, over the set of the second phase of the exercise, go a little bit deeper into answering those as well. I think before I start, I think it's generally very helpful if you have group meetings or if you have sessions, collective sessions, to have a facilitator, or at least have someone who can kind of take responsibility of sorry, of making sure that everybody feels happy throughout the call or the workshop or a project. And yeah, and then everybody else should feel like they're included. There's a lot of kind of tacit research. I can share with you later a kind of playbook that I put together with a bunch of principles that we use for organizational design. So the second phase of this short workshop will be more around just generally understanding where you're at, whether you're looking at your personal organization or your DAO or your business, like what it is that's happening right now, and approaching it in a mindful manner. So rather than looking at a traditional approach of creating a roadmap and like trying to stick to every single step forcefully and setting KPIs and making sure that they're done, we'll look at it at a more holistic perspective and a very inclusive way to get a good idea of what's really going on and just what to focus on next. What's the next most burning problem? I hope that it will give you already personally some idea and some sense for what you can focus on next. Again, whether it's your personal stuff or the org that you're working on. Okay, so let's get started. This is going to be fun. Basically, like I know I think more like 4 people. I didn't like create any frameworks for anything here in the Miro board, so it's very open. I would say just pick a frame and like use it as a desk. I hope you're familiar with Miro. Just take one of those, copy it anywhere you like. This is going to be your workspace, and I'm going to create one as well, just as a kind of a main space where we're just going to look at stuff. I will also share my screen so everybody can see what I'm looking at. Okay. And also the recording will capture what we're doing here. Okay, cool. Pen and paper. Oh, okay. Sweet. Yeah, that also works. That's great. So for the first part, you might want to, or you might have to share some things with me over chat then, and I'll just copy them over to Miro, just so I know like what you're thinking, and I can kind of play into that and direct my attention towards that. Okay, so oh, beautiful. Thank you. Actually, I'm gonna also create one for myself so I can participate myself too. So again, we'll first start on an exercise called How Might We's. How Might We's is a nice way of capturing challenges and making them sound solvable. Comes from originally like the 60s, 70s, but has been used by IDEO, who helped design the Magic Mouse for Apple and a lot of other devices later, and is being used a lot in these Fortune 100 companies to get people to do stuff. Then we'll sort those and just prioritize them so we see which challenges are the most important ones. And then we'll look at specifically your organization. We'll map out just all the tasks that you're currently doing. We'll categorize them into groups, and then we'll see what comes up and what can be prioritized, and maybe how things can be improved. So I'll share with you kind of a little bit of a framework of organizing based on the challenges that you're facing. Okay, so let's just dive straight in. If you have any questions, please just post them in the chat, and I'll hear a ping noise and we'll respond to them. So I'll set a timer for the first exercise for like 5 minutes. And by the way, this is going to be kind of like a fast-paced thing because we're all coming from different places, and usually I would give a little bit more time for my team to work together on stuff, just if the problem space is large. But just for the sake of kind of demonstration, and obviously you should try and follow this this guide yourself. Just for the sake of demonstration, I'll keep the times a bit shorter. It's actually also nice to have a little bit of time pressure because it makes everybody a bit more creative. So for the first 5 minutes, write down all challenges on a post-it that you can see within the realm of Web3, within the realm of DAOs, everything that you would like to figure out, stuff that seems to be not working for you personally, things that could be better, or just opportunities for improvement. So things that kind of bother you a little bit. And write them directly in a format called How Might We? So you basically start by saying, like, if you think that it's hard to make decisions in your DAO, then you just, rather than writing this as a negative statement, it's hard to make decisions, you write it as a how might we make better decisions. And what it does is immediately transform something that sounds like a friction point or a challenge or something like a blocker into a solvable problem. And makes it very easy for everybody else to also come up immediately with ideas on how to address that problem. And then we'll look at that specifically. Okay, so 5 minutes from now, and I will also play some jams so that you can focus. This is from an app called Endel. I don't have any affiliation with it, but I really like it. And pretty sure it's not copyrighted because also it's a free app. Also, if the volume doesn't work, please let me know. If you get stuck, also feel free to check out my board and write some examples. Okay, a couple seconds left. Beautiful. Cool. So finish up if you're still writing on something. And for Borrow Lucid, sorry, I don't know your name. I hope I pronounce it correctly. Feel free to drop them in the chat if you have any, or actually you can also just take a picture. Oh no, actually, yeah, if Miro doesn't work, you can't. But this is also still going to work if you're doing it just on paper. So look through the ones that you wrote down and let's move them in the top frame, in the main frame, just so everybody can see. Feel free to select those that you feel comfortable sharing. My intention with this is to also let everybody else see what you're struggling with, or like what the challenges, what the collective challenges are, because that's essentially also what happens in your individual teams. So everybody will have their own understanding of things and might feel comfortable with sharing only like a certain part of it. But it's important to actually exchange how like which ones you want to work with other people and like which ones do you want other people to see. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, just feel free to take these post-its and move them over. The top frame is on the very top. I just moved it above all of our individual frames, and drop them anywhere in the top frame. Perfect. Thank you. Let me just actually lock this up so it doesn't move around. Or if moving around is difficult, if you're on a phone, for example, then maybe try to change the color so I can see, and then I can move them over. And in the meantime, I'm going to just copy over a few others from the chat. Thank you so much. Amazing. Okay. And oh yeah, go on. Thank you so much for writing them on post-its. Should I move the post-its over, or would you prefer? Yeah, okay, cool. That's also fine. Yeah, maybe I should have also said that explicitly. Usually I would write like one statement per post-it, so that it's easier to move them around. But it's also fine if it's just text. We can always improvise as long as it's clear that they're separate, which I think they are in this case. And in the meantime, I'm just going to quickly prepare. So Miro has a voting plugin, but I actually don't like it too much because it's a bit wacky and it's not always clear. It's not visible where the votes land. So I'll just show you how I do it, so that usually we just have these little red dots and then we move them around so it's a little bit more visible what people are voting for. There's many different ways how you can vote, especially in this kind of workshop setting. Basically what you can do is, if you are exploring a little bit the governance space in Web3, a lot of the principles that are used there can be applied to this kind of soft governance. So like the personal voting with a group of people in the same space. Oh yeah, cool. So this is kind of one challenge. Would you consider that one, or do you want to split that up into multiple? Go on. Oh yeah, perfect. Thank you. That answers it. Beautiful. I'll make them a little bit. I'll make them the same size, and I think what we could also do is amazing. Thank you. Yeah, color doesn't matter, but it's also maybe nice to just for yourself to identify which ones are yours. So now let's do a second phase. And so as you might notice, this is already kind of replacing the part of the of a regular conversation where people kind of speak from different directions. And in this case, we just have a space where we can all contribute with like a focused mind, and approximately with everything with the same amount, and like with everything that you want to express. And so this writing and reading structure collaboratively gives us a good way of just capturing what everybody's thinking of without having distraction from someone who's particularly loud or the opposite, or feels uncomfortable speaking into a group of individuals. So what we'll do is take 4 of these dots each, and you can, let me just quickly bring all of those to the front. Oh, yeah. So below the post-its, I just dropped in a few red circles. Try to keep track of yours, or maybe I can just move them apart from each other. So this just 4. And move them onto the post-its that you think are the most important for you personally, or maybe also for other people. You can vote on your own. You can also vote on with many post-its. With several votes on the same. I just got a ping, but I didn't see a message. Oh, it's just a microphone. Okay. And just place it. Oh yeah, shit. Sorry, I should have placed the votes on top. Yeah, they. Perfect. Thank you. I'll bring them to front. Okay. And I also set like a timer of 5 minutes approximately, but actually let me do 3 because we don't have that many. Voting under time pressure is also quite useful. It makes it more, helps to focus a little bit. But I'll obviously wait till you placed all your votes. And also feel free to obviously read through everybody else's stuff. So vote on everybody's thoughts. I'm just going to bring those. It's about a minute left, but it looks like we're all progressing. Oh, someone else joined. Cool, multi-DAO. Oh yeah, wait. Welcome. Feel free to vote on whatever you feel like is useful, and we'll just go into answering those questions. Cool. So let me just move them around so that they're visually a little bit more distinguished into the upvoted ones and kind of everything else. Usually it just makes it easier to just scan everything, and I'll read them out in a second. So we have 3 with 2 votes, and then a whole range of single voted post-its. The reason I use 4 votes, by the way, it's kind of flexible. So sometimes it depends on the amount of post-its. If it's like a huge amount, like 50 or so, or even more, then you can also do 5 votes. But the constraint of having 4 votes makes it a bit easier to focus on what's really important. And it makes it a bit challenging to vote, but that's exactly what you want. So if people complain that it's hard to figure out which one they should vote for, then it's actually a good thing, because that makes them think about what really matters. All right, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to read through them, and if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and we can, or you can also feel free to like speak out actually. But maybe for this case, using the chat is better for questions on clarification. We can start a quick discussion. So how might we allow members to vote while keeping their membership secret? How might we develop a coherent plan of attack to submit to various funding rounds? How might we evaluate developers' contributions to employ the most effective ones? And then these are the top voted ones. And then how might we articulate application features more succinctly and quickly? How might we quickly determine the most effective paths to choose? How might we collaborate between service providers, whether or not there's capital to fund the work or not, so we can get to making the things, solving the problems, and be creative as we want to? And then coordination between DAOs. DAOs lay on causes, and there can be multiple DAOs motivated by similar causes. In some cases, these motivations could be significantly equal. So which incentives should be aligned so that DAOs with similar causes coordinate? Great question. How might we work on something the market will pay for? How might we facilitate onboarding, build trust? How to recognize what is a distraction? How to avoid unnecessary rabbit holes and ego. Yay. Very big one. Cool. Okay, so these are really great. Let me use the second phase of this exercise to kind of go through how you can answer these questions for yourself, and I'll just kind of play into those. So the second phase of the exercise is to kind of map out your own organization. So we'll actually work within your individual kind of workspace below. Those of you who don't have one yet, I don't know if everybody has one. Just create one of these frames. These are all very complex challenges that are also can be solved on a very individual basis. But I'll show you first how I look at an organization in general from the top. So you can identify the pain points, exactly where they are, and then answer these questions in a more specific manner. I think actually maybe one of those, so this second, how might we develop a coherent plan of attack to submit to various funding rounds? Obviously, there are many different ways of doing this, but one of the recommendations I have around like specifically creating a coherent plan of attack is essentially by using some similar framework to what I'm doing here, which is you create a space for people who are interested in creating that plan and contributing to it, and go through certain stages of writing down what do you want to do, what is the plan, and how you want to address it. So what you just experienced with writing down and voting is essentially a big foundation for any decision-making process. So right now, we just mapped out all the challenges. This is generally useful because that's how you can start any conversation that has a very high degree of uncertainty. And the next stage, for example, could be coming up with very specific solutions. So what we could also do here is to use the same principles to come up with solutions for each individual post-it underneath. And that way you'll see a lot of different ideas coming up. So in the context of developing a coherent plan to submit to various funding rounds, you just want to ask yourself a couple of questions. So like, which funding rounds do you want to address? What needs to be done in order to do that? And who is generally involved? So the way I structure something like this, and we've done this before actually, is also starting with this: how might we exercise? So what are the things that need to go into this plan? And then coming up with solutions, similar fashion, just come up with things that can be tangibly done in order to achieve that plan or achieve a successful outcome. And then on the solutions, you basically just vote with your name. And that way you'll have a good sense of, first of all, what could the ideal plan look like? Then what is the general solution space, or like what could be solutions? Actually, for those, I don't know if everybody can see the mirror, or sorry, I'm just going to repost the link. You'll have a list of solutions, and then the coherence comes from aligning on not just what the most important challenges and what the most interesting solutions are, but also creating accountability by placing your name on the things that you want to do and holding each other accountable. So in many cases, when we do workshops like these, especially in the DAO space, by writing down your name and putting it on a post-it of a solution, you'll create visibility of what everybody wants to work on. And you set yourself a deadline. It doesn't have to be like a specific achievement by that time. Like, you don't have to have everything finished, but I would usually recommend like a time frame of like 2 weeks or so to get people to work on very specific parts of that plan and then execute it. Because what you essentially want to visualize is just who says, yes, I want to work on this, and promise that to everybody else, especially the person who is leading the project. So remember to have one person who's kind of like a steward, facilitator, who helps everybody achieve their goals, but also keeps track of time, deliverables, and the deadline and the progression of the entire project. And then everybody actually feels motivated to stay in line because you understand what everybody's interested in. Okay, so this was just a kind of a very first comment on one of these things. Okay, so let's dive into the second phase. And now we'll write down just generally, if you look at your own organization, there's a lot of things going on. And obviously, again, this is also something you can do together with your group. You want to find out what is actually really happening right now from everybody's perspective and align on that and agree on all the work that's being done. So we'll first write down the general tasks and any kind of activity that is happening, and we'll just categorize them a little bit. So in an organizational setting, it would basically be like details and tasks and work that's being done and categorized into like teams and departments. They're obviously all fluid, but what we want to create here is like a snapshot just to see this is really happening. And considering all these challenges, we'll know where exactly we need to place our focus to address these particular challenges. So let's take another 5 minutes and just write down within your organization, whether it's a DAO. You can also use this for your personal life. Like, I often do that for like structuring what I'm actually doing in my personal life, just to stay focused on the things that I want to achieve, because that's also in a sense an organization. And map out everything that's happening. So like any kinds of tasks, whether it's writing proposals or having weekly meetings, or if you're thinking about your household as an organization, it could be something like cleaning stuff, doing the bills, or also like having creative sessions, building a product, developing developing front end if you want to be super specific. But we'll constrain ourselves now for 5 minutes. Everything you can come up with, 5 minutes is enough to just kind of show you how it works. And we can also, you can repeat that exercise yourself with more time. And yeah, I'll play 5 minutes. So I'll see you at the other end. maybe try to write as many as you can, even if they're very small. So there's no specific constraint on the granularity. You don't have to keep it like general or granular. Just write down what feels like this is happening, and you can get into the details at a later stage. I'll add another minute. So just for the sake of time, let's move on. So this is scheduled for 2 hours. I don't know if we want to do 2 hours. I kind of keep it open, and I think like 1 hour is going to be enough. Usually 2-hour workshops are very intense, and I honestly want to drain your brain right now already. So I'm probably going to just keep it shorter. I might finish in the next 15 minutes or so, depending on the challenges and how it goes. Okay, so now you have a kind of general understanding of what's currently happening in your organization in like a very unstructured manner, and that's completely fine because everybody's perspective on the organization and the work that's happening is going to be different, and especially if you're doing that in a collaborative setting, it's very useful to just get everything out there and have everybody else see what's happening. So now slowly, let's move it towards structure. So the structure and framework I kind of apply here is based on a lot of organizational design principles. So this is something that is not like new. I haven't invented it. It's been around for at least 10,000 years. It's essentially how people organize as humans and make decisions together. It's replicated in a lot of management theory, in a lot of social science, as well as organizational design work I can refer mostly to sociocratic organization, which is kind of making that very clear. Or if you're interested in digging deeper into the science, then Stafford Beer's viable system model is a very good reference point to just understand how an organism lives, and it's applicable to actually every single organism you'll see. So it will also be applicable to biological organisms, as well as if you think about well-developed technical infrastructure, then also like autonomous systems. So this is kind of the way I try to simplify it. So what you currently wrote down are individual tasks and workflows. Some of these tasks are one-off tasks. They happen sometimes. Others are part of individual workflows that a single person can actually execute. If you thought about your personal life, this is just things that you do on a regular basis. And things that are being kind of done that are necessary in order to keep you alive or the organization alive. And so we start from the middle, from the core. These are the individual tasks. And then there are specific tasks that you can group together into time-based collaboration and context-based collaboration. So time-based collaboration is, let's say you have a team of multi-skilled individuals. There might be designers, there might be developers. A very classic example is like an agile sprint. So you would get people together into one sprint. You have a start date, you have an end date, and then people work together on stuff. If you're thinking about kind of your personal life, it could be just multiple things that you just want to do throughout a week. So if you think about your household, it's like you need to clean, you need to, I don't know, do your laundry, you need to go shopping. And this is like time-based because you need to do that on a regular basis, but there's multiple things that stick together. But what we want to do first is actually group your tasks into context-based collaboration. So this is more reflected in teams or departments in an organization to get a sense of who just works together closely or what work is being done that is kind of adjacent. So, for example, if some of the tasks you wrote is like social media posts or writing updates on Discord, or I don't know, running a podcast, then you can kind of categorize them as something like marketing or awareness because it has a very specific goal. All of these tasks drift towards the same goal. And maybe I know you have like various amounts of post-its, but I'll give you a couple of minutes just to look through yours and maybe like separate them into different contexts. So as you do that, you might also find out that there's more tasks that fall under a specific category and a specific context. So in this example, in my board, I just reposted some work that I've done recently with a friend on Metagov. So what you see here are in yellow the post-its of all the tasks that are happening at Metagov. I don't know if you're familiar with Metagov. If yes, great. They're a great crew, can recommend them. They're doing excellent research. If not, that's essentially what they do. And we then categorize them into specific topics. So there's finance, ops, research, community, network. And so kind of that's the first stage you want to get at, is just to get a clear sense of how you want to compress and like simplify the understanding of what's happening. So from the outside, it's going to be easier to see, oh, operations. Okay, cool. So what's going on in operations? So if you're thinking about a DAO, it makes it easier for people to identify where is the interesting work or where could be challenges if something doesn't work well. So let's say if we're thinking about how much we allow members to vote while keeping the membership secret, that might be a challenge that is more related to the people who work in ops because they need to structure how people collaborate together, which tools you use. And I mean, this is obviously just an example, but that's the way to think through the ordering of your work and your organization. So I'll do a timer on like 3 minutes or so, just to give you a little bit of time to think about it. Feel free to also just look through what everybody else has so far. If you're just interested in kind of seeing other people's perspectives, or just look through the Metagov example, and we'll go to the next step in a moment. have some tasks that come up that you haven't expected or you haven't thought about, that fit into a specific category that might already relate to some of the problems that you expressed earlier. Looks like we're done. If not, feel free to just move them in some way. It doesn't have to be perfect, actually. It never is. Okay, so now this is a good point to go into a couple of these how might we's from earlier. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that there is a certain responsibility and agency. So one of the things that Stafford Beer specifically points out in his viable system model for how organizations work is that each unit has to be autonomous and oh, hey William. I don't know if the link in the chat is still visible on this Miro board, just for context. So yeah, each unit, whether it's an individual role, independent of the person who's executing it, or a project, or a kind of team or department, has to be autonomous compared to everybody else, but also still connected and having relationships that are very clear and distinct. And in management theory, it's basically, if you think about a traditional organization, think about a person that carries the responsibility of making sure that the work gets gets completed. So if you're thinking about an individual workflow, then and you're doing the work, which is you've listed in your tasks, you can kind of elaborate on how you do these things that you wrote down as kind of a task or activity. And I can refer to that as a workflow, because usually it's like you do step 1, step 2, step 3. It doesn't have to be in the same order, but you just kind of do these things, and that's your recurring workflow. Then you're the person who's accountable of completing it, and you have to hold yourself accountable to completing it. And you're kind of your own steward or your own leader, your own manager. With time-based projects, like with agile sprints, there's always a person who kind of facilitates it, or a project manager who makes sure that things get done. I don't want to drift into the kind of the traditional corporate type of a manager, because I don't see good management to be done that way. I'm just using that term because it's reflected in what the environments that we know. I think specifically in DAOs, think about the position as more like a steward, or just a lead, a facilitator, who doesn't tell people what to do because they have to be themselves the people who lead themselves, but rather provides the environment that makes it delightful to motivate individuals themselves to complete the work. But there still has to be some kind of oversight to facilitate this collaboration in order to make sure that it's completed well at a high quality. And so to answer the question above, how might we evaluate developers' contributions to employ the most effective ones? First of all, what's important, or like kind of what the question entails, is that there is a specific description of what a developer is. So you want to kind of be clear about what are the responsibilities, what are the tasks that go into the work of a developer. So what's the developer workflow? So they gather requirements, they set up infrastructure, they maybe communicate with designers or researchers, they sit down and implement the requirements, they present them to the stakeholders, and so on. And that has to be clear, and people and developers, as like the group of developers, have to be aligned on what that actually means, and have to agree that this is what we do as developers in that organization. And so when you have alignment on the actual workflow, then it's actually very easy to evaluate the contributions and the outcomes, because you can map the outcomes to the workflows. So like a workflow would be just an instruction manual, and the outcome would be the result. And if you have these two things, then it's very easy to compare and see who is contributing to a higher extent, who is like making like fulfilling all these specific tasks. Some developers might just do one part of that workflow, and that's also fine. They're also contributors and really want to do a certain part of that, and it's very important to also appreciate that. But as a steward, or as a lead, or as a manager of a project, it's very easy then to see who stands out the most, who contributes the most, who has delivered, especially if you have this environment where you start off with agreeing on what needs to be done, what are the workflows, what are the tasks, and then reevaluating that in the end. This is where this time-based collaboration, or where agile sprints are very useful. And I don't think that they're well implemented in traditional organizations, but I think they're extremely powerful in DAOs, because they give people the freedom to actually do the things that they want to do. And those who stay the most motivated will actually stay until the end, and will be interested in reflecting on how things went. So this is an agile retrospective, if you're not familiar with that. So you would kind of review what worked well, what could be better, and make decisions on how to work together next time. So basically, the combination of individuals agreeing on what needs to be done, adhering to the workflows, having a facilitator, steward, or manager to scope out the project, and having an end date when you have a retrospective, makes it very, very easy to understand what are the contributions at that date, what are the results, and how do we kind of prioritize them based on efficiency. And employing in this context, the way that I see it, is essentially who are the people who were able to do the most from this one workflow. And sometimes you start projects and you don't actually know, so you don't know what the workflows are. But by the end of the project, you know, here's like the most high quality result. Who did that? How did that work? Let's deconstruct that. Let's set that as a quality standard of what employment actually means. And then later, you have this kind of, it's kind of a mix of a job description and a tutorial. The workflow describes the quality standard of what it means to be employed. So later, if someone comes in and they want to be part of the organization, and this is also kind of answering a little bit into the question of how to facilitate onboarding, you have a role and a documentation for a specific workflow, and everybody who can execute on that workflow is essentially onboarded in the organization. I can show you an example. Maybe I don't know if I can share my screen here or switch to it quickly. I can show you how that looks in our organization. Just 1 second. I need to log in here. Here. So this is our organization, and we have a software development department, and we have very clearly articulated what it means to be a developer. So let's see. Here's a backend engineer, and oh, this is not loading for some reason. Sorry. Maybe I'll show you a different workflow. Maybe it shows up here. Okay, so here, this is just a link. There's something where sometimes I put them in. Yeah, here. So this is kind of the workflow. For example, for a product manager, it's not for a developer. I haven't copied it over yet. But basically, that's a role. If someone can execute it on a project, then they are onboarded. And I know that Dennis, for example, is a product manager. He's also a backend engineer. We have a pretty small team. I think we have like 3 front-end engineers. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, okay, so this is just a description of the other one. There's some workflows that are more extensive. This is also just to give you an example of the range of different roles and responsibilities. So like for product designers, for example, it can be a lot more extensive in terms of what people need to do. And this is being employed in a DAO, essentially. Like there is no contract, but there is a social contract. Can you execute that workflow? Yes. Okay, cool. Can you not execute it? Well, then maybe you need to learn a little bit more and work with someone to get onboarded. Okay, so we'll go back to the Miro board. Okay. So it's very useful to think about who are the individuals in your organization who can execute very specific workflows, who are the individuals who own and steward the recurring collaborations, the time-based collaborations, and who are the ones who are kind of the meta leads, like who are the ones that take responsibility of looking at a particular department, so like your engineering department, like who makes sure that the processes are tight and that they actually make sense. So all of these things will help you evaluate the contributions of every single individual over the course of time. Because in the end, we're all humans and we just need some kind of structure to pay attention to the right things, but also have the responsibility and autonomy to make those decisions. And so if you have multiple departments, like for example here with Metagov, you will have different leads. So you would have an ops lead, you would have a research lead, and they have to understand essentially what's going on within these teams and can also communicate to each other if some improvements need to be made based on external observation of critical events. With regard to allowing members to vote while keeping their membership secret, I think this is a very technical question that I don't have the expertise to answer from the perspective of, like which tools to employ or which tools to use. I think the answer can be found in a very similar way if it's clear who are the members, like what does it mean to be a member? Is it part of the organization? Do you have to do some work in order to be a member? Do you need to fulfill certain tasks? Is it generally someone who has an expertise, who is an internal member and they have been kind of approved to be able to follow a specific workflow or role? And if so, if they have to keep it their contribution secret, I mean, they can have a anonymous account. It's essentially then not about. I mean, from my perspective at least, it's more challenge to understand where does that vote go. So like, where does that individual sit? Is it an individual who works within a specific project, or are those a wide range of individuals? And what does voting actually mean? So do they make proposals? Well, they can be anonymous. Do they have to communicate that information to a specific manager or steward or even a lead? And what happens with these decisions? So I think from an organizational design perspective or kind of social systems engineering perspective, I would rather answer this from as like think through the trail of information. So what information does the anonymous or I guess like secret member need, and how do they what do they do with that information, and what does that mean to be a secret member? Is it someone who is just so that you don't know? Cool, thank you for elaborating. Membership is based on 3/5 of the existing membership agreeing on a person is a member. I think the solution lies in Merkle trees and zero knowledge proofing. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of more the technical technical sense, and I think this I definitely agree with that. I haven't seen any like specific tool that employs zero knowledge proofs that well. There are a few projects that have worked on it, but it's very difficult to. I mean, I haven't found anything that was specifically geared towards organizing around work and zero knowledge proofing your contribution. So in reality, we have our kind of track record and our reputation of work, and some of it we are happy with sharing, others we're not happy with sharing, and I think with specifically with like contributing or showing our reputation, I haven't necessarily seen any project. I mean, Gitcoin Passport goes maybe in that direction, but I don't know if that's actually like secret or anonymous. There was Seismo, which was a product, but I think they sunset, which basically captured your on-chain data and let you select specifically the pieces that you want to share with whoever you want to share, while keeping the rest hidden. So yeah, it's. I think the challenge is to find out what information needs to be shared in order to prove that yes, you can make that decision. Yes, you are a member. Yes, you can follow a specific workflow without disclosing what it actually is, and without showing like exactly what are your skills or what is your work. And then I think that's a more kind of socio-technical question of implementation in a specific environment where, you know, we have portfolios that show our reputation, and that requires zero knowledge proofs. I think Merkle trees are also a good reference to generally the compression of information, as you can see with like from tasks, projects, departments, are very similar. You can think about projects actually also like a blockchain itself. It's kind of a social blockchain. So you have a block, which is a time-based collaboration. Within that, you have different contributions, and they have to be all agreed upon by all contributors in order to be verified. Again, this technical infrastructure doesn't exist yet. With all this work, I'm also contributing to solving these problems. But I just want to share with you a framework that, at least on a kind of social level or like socio-technical level, is something that that works, and you can observe it, and based on your observation, then choose the right tools to facilitate that. So when you see how people collaborate, especially from a top-down perspective, and want to capture the best things, then oh great, thank you. I'm going to repost this link here. Then you can select the tools that are the most applicable. So always think about like what is the actual behavior first, and then you can think through the tools and see if you can apply them and implement them in your environment, because there's going to be an unlimited set of tools which are very specific, and your organization will have to figure out the ones that seem to be the most reasonable. Okay, let me quickly go through what else is here, if anything has not been answered yet. Articulate application features more succinctly and quickly. I think that how would we articulate application features? So this seems to be something that's more related to how to articulate a narrative around a product, and that. So your organization always lives within the context of your environment. So it's actually quite simple. So what is your environment? Who are your stakeholders? Who benefits from the features? And how do they describe the value? If you know how they describe the value, then you just reuse their words and say, here's what we do. So if you're, I don't know, I was talking to a friend recently who wants to make cool, delicious tortillas and sell them. So you make a tortilla, you give it to someone to taste, you ask, what do you think about this? What is this? How does it taste? And they tell you it's like super delicious, it's super creamy inside, it's eggs and potatoes, and then you use these words in order to say, hey, here's what I do. And then more people can pick up on it. But it always starts with a conversation with one person. The articulation on a larger scale is essentially just the amplification of what you already know from a one-on-one conversation. So the answer to that is generally in the realm of user research. Quickly determine the most effective paths to choose. Again, the question here is, who is the person or who are the people who make certain decisions? So think about the kind of management structure or the responsibility structure. I can highly recommend using workshops like these to map out the problem space and then use some kind of framework to prioritize. There's a lot in design thinking, like an effort impact scale. If you know that, it's just like on a vertical scale, what's the effort? And then on the horizontal scale, what's the impact? And then you map out all the things that are happening on this particular scale, and just decide this is the most effective thing to do. Let me see if I can bring out an example for that. I have that in a different template. I think here it is. I'll also share with you all these templates later, or actually I can post you a link in a second to something like a summary of the basic fundamentals. So here is the example for like this effort impact scale. You do a similar kind of workshop, just map out everything that's going on, and then you basically want the things that happen in the impact, high impact and low effort. And that, at least in my perspective, that captures the effectiveness. But obviously there's a lot of frameworks for these things. As long as you have that information articulated in text, in Post-its, or in some form that is readable, then you can work with that information collectively. How might we collaborate between service providers, whether or not there's capital to fund the work or not, so we can get to making the things, solving the problems, and want to be as creative as we want to? There's a lot in that question. Again, who are your service providers? What's your environment? So these are stakeholders that will be interested in working with you and identifying and plugging into the gaps you have. So what you've done as you mapped out your little organization is you created a snapshot of what's happening right now. Now, if you bring in an external party that has an expertise on something that you don't have, they will be able to identify where within this realm of things that you're doing is something that is missing from their perspective. And then the second part of the question around the capital to fund is not all work needs to be funded with money. You can have excellent value exchange that is contextual based or context based, and kind of a one-on-one negotiation. So you don't always need to use money. There's obviously like countless examples of volunteering projects where that happens on an individual basis. People don't just do things for free. They get something out of it. So the question is, what do people get out of it, and how do they benefit from the collaboration? In many cases, and this is the third part, the creative aspect is actually just fun to do, and people love doing it, and they get something out of it by just contributing to something where they can be creative around their work, and progress something and feel like they're connected to a larger purpose. That is value in itself. Like there's a lot of Ethereum developers, for example, they don't get paid, but the infrastructure works, and they're very aware of why they're contributing. DAOs lay on causes. There are multiple. Okay, so this is also an important one. Actually, I haven't mentioned that, but it's good to kind of think through this. You mapped out your tasks. You categorize them into contexts. What's connecting the tasks to the context is the progression towards a specific goal. So your organization has a mission and a vision and a trajectory of development, and each of these individual units, whether it's your individual workflow, has goals and hazards. This is also something that's very common in systems engineering when you want to build autonomous machines. Every single unit has a specific goal and a specific hazard, and by being aware of those, you can tell the machine to stay on track. And while we're working with humans and not machines, the principles are very similar, and they're also reflected in a lot of social science research. Starts with Stoicism, but it's also found in literature from Daniel Kahneman, Jordan Peterson, Carl Jung. It's all about articulating what the goal is and what the mission is. And when you can do that, then it's very clear how different that is from a different organization. So if you have DAOs that have similar missions, the kind of mental model around competition in a DAO space is not who is better, but who is clearer about their mission and solves a very, very specific problem. And if you can articulate that and compare, then it's easier to distinguish yourself. You have categories that you reference to help to more effectively organize information into context. Categories that I reference. So you mean like categories of work, or it's very individual. It's very subjective. I think depending on what your organization is working on, these categories can be a team, like a department, like a business unit. But the context is like what environment that unit exists in. So what are its goals? What is it connected to? Who's working within it? So I think, I'm not sure if I'm answering that well. Is that more or less referring to? Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. So they're all relative to each other. And with an organization like this kind of the picture that I showed earlier, this one, it's like you start from the inside and kind of map it out, but then you obviously have multiple context-based collaboration units. Or as I showed you in our software, we have like different departments. We have software engineering, we have a design studio, we have awareness. These are essentially the categories that we identified ourselves. And you can see that from also from a Metagov example, or maybe from the things that you wrote down. These are essentially like they're related to each other, and only together they work towards a common goal. And then that's also something that can help you find out how to make a business profitable, because some pieces might just be missing. I was in what the role of an AI and essentially the compass of automation and decentralization. Yeah, I don't know if that's a question. I agree. There's kind of a lot to unpack in that sentence. But just for the sake of time, I'm happy to have the conversation afterwards. I also just don't want to stick too deep or get too deep into a rabbit hole, which is another one we have here: how to avoid unnecessary rabbit holes. I think, the pre-scheduled workshops, when you do like in-person interaction, set timers so people don't drift away, prioritize things so everybody's aligned, have a facilitator who points out to stick with the schedule, and a steward or manager who glues the team together and makes sure that if a conversation drives away, to bring them slowly back. It requires a little bit of like human, like empathy skills, and understanding how to lead people, how to empower people to contribute back to the bigger thing without drifting away, because some of the things might be actually fun and enjoyable. So there's a nuance of exploration and exploitation, and making both kind of fun while sticking, while being focused. Yeah, AI automation isn't opposing DAO decentralization. Nothing auto generates DAOs. Yeah, okay, this is actually a cool one. Something auto generates AI automation. So the way I think about AI automation, and the way I learned it from, kind of read from a guy called Robert Skidelsky. He's like an economic researcher and historian, and he has a really great book that's called Work in the Future, where essentially one of the things that he's pointing out to with regard to automation is that essentially humans, or like you, always choose what to automate or not. And so in the context of an organization, when you have a specific quality standard, a certain value that you're creating, and you have that articulated as workflows, and like with all the data that we've just gone through, you can decide which parts you want to automate and which parts you want to do manually, because people want to do things. Like work is still part of a fulfilling life, as long as it's have a purpose, and as long as it's clearly connected to a specific outcome. In traditional corporate organizations, that there is a disconnect. There's usually, you do work and then it never reaches, you never see the result of that. But if you have a DAO structure where the trail of impact is very clear, and you have that articulated, then people will choose the things that like doing the most. And so everything else goes into automation. And so you can use AI to automate a lot of the knowledge management tasks, and potentially decentralization, where you decentralize or delegate certain work. So yeah, I always kind of look at automation in three, or like at actually the humanly valuable work in three categories, which is any work that's related to social work. So anything that requires you and me talking to each other and interacting, or just humans doing human things. Creativity, which is just coming up with new ideas, solving challenges, solving problems, and creating some new insights from something that you haven't thought about before. And I think governance and decision making plays a huge role in that as well. And manual tasks that require your fingers, hands, limbs, face, and everything that requires a human body. So these things, usually I use that as a guideline of thinking through whether something in the workflow needs to be automated or can be automated or not. And these three things, generally, there will always be someone who will enjoy that type of work. So if you're thinking about hiring, always all work is very individual and very subjective, and people enjoy different things. But usually these three categories will persist throughout time. So if you're planning how to what to automate within your organization, and you want to make sure that it sustains and it stays alive over the course of time, then most likely these are going to be the core things you will do. So everything else will be slowly automated away, because you can consider it as like undesirable work. People will always automate the things that they don't want to be doing, and will want to focus on the things that kind of fall into these three categories. If you find out more categories, please let me know. Very interested in that too. Okay. Yeah, I think with ego, just to kind of touch on that, it's in my experience, it's a progression. The more free people get at doing the things that they really love doing, the less they're attached to their own egos. And it's not a very simple question. It's very multifaceted. Depends on people's social kind of stability, financial stability, their ability to have their basic needs covered, um, and and fulfilling themselves. So the higher they are on the Maslow, how do you call it, the Maslow scale, um, the less will be their ego, and it's also a practice. I think when you have systems in an organization that allow you to give productive and constructive feedback to each other, it helps people kind of understand that feedback is not something that will destroy them, but something that will actually progress everybody and elevate them. And then that's also a big part of where kind of ego slowly dissolves, because people get less attached to their thoughts and beliefs and ideas, and receive honest feedback on what the reality is. And the more truthful and the more close we get to reality and agreeing on a shared reality, the less it's going to be about holding on to something that is that might be destructive. And that these things also build trust. So it's kind of the having fewer legal constraints and more confrontations with other humans, um, uh, counterintuitively build a lot more trust. So in our organization, which again is also like a DAO, everybody's doing whatever they want, and there are constraints that are purely social. So if you have an agile sprint and someone doesn't like what you've done, or you've lied about your work, well, that person might not work with you again. And so because everybody is clear about the fact that they can be excluded from this structure at any point in time, people actually want to work closer together and do put more effort into proving that they stick to their promises, and work and like and create a better image of themselves and kind of reputation in front of everybody else, and that makes them a lot more trustworthy. And obviously, over time, as you gather reputation by contributing to different organizations, you gather insights about what you've done. So the software that the project management software that we build is actually just kind of using that framework in order to help people generate a track record of what are the projects across different organizations that they have contributed to, what were the tasks that everybody could agree on within that project, or what are the workflows, what are their roles, and and then they can share that. So it's very similar to GitHub, where you can share, this is like my account, my code base, this is all the things that I've done in code, but just more like technology agnostic, and like think about it as kind of code for humans, as workflows, and that creates a lot of trust. It's the outcomes, the deliverables, your process, and who else has seen that you have done that work in a specific context. And yeah, and I think with how much we work on something the market will pay for. I wrote this just because I've kind of worked on that problem for many years, specifically in the context of DAOs. When you have all this structure in place, and you create recurring loops and can evaluate, are you still reaching your goals? Are you in line? Is everybody in line with the goals? Are you creating something of high quality at a consistent basis? Then you can start to evaluate what value that has, and compare that with what the market would pay for. And initially, once you get to a place where you can replicate certain things that have specific value, and people can respond to you with that, and your the customers, your environment, especially with Web3 projects, a lot of them suffer from just actually not understanding what people want to pay for. And they're not doing user research. So they're not actually asking or talking to the users a lot. So they don't understand what is the thing that's valuable. So if you ask people what they think is what experiences from your offering have been valuable to them in particular, they will tell you, and you will use these words to communicate what it is that you're doing and how much it's worth. If you think about pricing, I usually just go from comparing day rates in terms of like just calculating how much does every individual within each workflow needs to be paid, and then how big is the problem that's being solved, because that decides on essentially the profit margin. You can look through stuff from Alex Hormozy. He's a really good kind of sales and BD guy, influencer, has a lot of cool insights. Some of the things are quite wacky, but there's a lot of interesting ways of thinking about how to, like productize your services, how to sell them, how to communicate the value, how to calculate the profit margin, how to find what your target audience really wants and how to communicate that to them. So I can really recommend that resource. Okay, so I think we're good. Does anybody else have any questions here? Makes me really happy that you stuck through all of this 90 minutes. I hope I didn't fry your brain by talking. I hope you found something nice from this. And here's, by the way, I don't know if I probably haven't shared it. Let me share with you the Git book that we have. It's kind of a organizational design place. It captures a lot of the things that I've talked about in written text. I don't know if you can feed that into some LLM and just ask it questions, but a lot of the things will be reflected there. Also, if you have questions ever, then don't hesitate reaching out to me. I'm Hishiman on Twitter or Andrej Berlin on Telegram. I'm happy to answer or help you with any advice if you're in a particular situation and got stuck. Everything is solvable, and we're all in this together. And I'm happy to work with you, and maybe I'll see you on some project in some DAO in the future, because I'm also contributing to many different things, and it's very pleasant to see familiar faces around. So yeah, I guess thank you so much for the feedback. Thank you so much for collaborating and contributing to this. And I'll see you next time, on the internet or labor hand recognition is good analogies to scope of the range. Yeah, cool. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I have so many notes. Really appreciate it. And this was recorded, so look out for that. And then just one thing is next Thursday, we'll have 2 more sessions for DAO Spring. And then this week's challenge is build a landing page and or an MVP. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andrej, so much.
Thanks to you guys. It was great to see you all. Catch you soon.